What's up, guys? This is Apurva, another episode of Door Stories. I'm super excited to have a good buddy of mine, Adam Gilbert, with me today, all the way from beautiful Palm Springs, California. Adam, appreciate you taking the time to meet with me and rap about all things real estate like we do. Let's take it from the top, man. Like, walk me through your journey. How did you get in this business? Give me your background, and then we'll just kind of start rapping.
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Excited to be here and talk, and you'll learn more about me, and I'm sure I'll learn more about you as well. So I love this process. But I kind of fell into real estate. It was never really the plan. Didn't really have family or anything in real estate outside of I have one uncle who flipped a house a couple of times. My background is I was always planning to be an attorney. I'm a third generation attorney in my family, and I was going to go to school, go to law school, practice law, and that was it. It wasn't until I actually became an attorney and found out that I could sit for my broker's exam, without taking any classes in California, that I did that just to have a license. It happened to be in 2012, and we were just coming out of the great
Mm.
financial crisis, and so I had this license, and that same uncle was like, "Hey, let's flip a house." And I'm like, "All right." I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Luckily, there was a very kind agent on the other side who helped me out. And he bought this house for it was probably like 750,000 or something like that, in 2012. And I represented him, and I got this commission check for 20 grand, which was like a quarter of my yearly salary for like 10 hours of work that I was doing on the side. And that's when the light bulb went off, at least on the brokerage side. But then everything just sparked, and I was like, with my background, very interested in development and entitlements and things of that nature. So I just deep dived ULI, all this stuff, and just tried to take in as much information as possible.
That's incredible. So like it's funny, I've noticed kind of everybody always have kind of like the family member is the first one to trust you when you have no
Of
experience,
course, of
right?
course.
Good
Yeah.
or bad. It's incredible. So you kind of helped, you were just a kind of a broker in this deal, but you got to see somebody kind of, close to you go through the flipping experience, kind of understand the mechanics there. Um, what was the next step? Did we, start to expand the brokerage side of the business? You were obviously a lawyer simultaneously, so like, let's keep going down the journey.
Yeah, so you will notice the ADD-ness in me as we go through the other various stories. But another light bulb, my second light bulb moment hit me around the same time. And my now wife and I were living in New York for the summer because she had a job there. And we were traveling around, and we stayed in someone's empty room in DC in a new thing called Airbnb. And after we left, and because they were there, it was co-hosting at that time was like the big thing. My wife was like, "That was weird and awkward." I'm like, "This is the future. This is amazing." So I went, so I went back to Palm Springs, where we're usually like 5 to 10 years behind everyone else, and uh, my uncle had that condo that I had mentioned earlier, and I put it on Airbnb, and it did like 4x what it was doing as a regular, long-term
Long-term rental,
rental.
yeah.
Yeah, and so because I was so early on the platform, the algorithm loved me, and so any new
Mm.
property that I put on my account just went to the top, and so my properties were generating maybe 20 to 30% higher than other properties just because it was the first one that people saw. So as I was learning real estate and doing some sales, I was also building the vacation rental management business, which I ended up, building up to 35 total full-time properties. It was probably about 50 or 60 during Coachella, because we just had a lot of just Coachella properties that came up. And I sold that to Turnkey, who's based out of Austin, in 2018. They were buying small companies like mine at the time. So in doing the vacation rentals, not only did I gain a lot of experience about what worked, and so I brokered a lot of investment deals for people acquiring vacation rentals. But then when people were done with the rentals that I was managing, it made it very easy for me to sell them. So a lot of my early transactions was out of this investor vacation rental market.
Wow. Okay. First of all, I didn't even know any of this in your background. So I'm learning, just like you said, I'm learning right now. Wait, okay. So you built a platform for property management, exited that along the way, simultaneously kind of got the nuances of the value of Airbnb real estate as an
Yeah.
investment, right? Now, were you buying properties for yourself, or were you primarily just kind of managing, and that was kind of your first exposure line?
Yeah. So, I was a 25-year-old genius at the time. And so I was like, well, why
I
buy
love it.
properties? Yeah. Why buy properties when I can just manage four of them at 25% of gross rents and not have any of the risk? Which
Mm,
was, you know, it made sense because we're coming out of such a negative, risky environment of the market. Not thinking about if I had bought properties at that time, the upside would have been so
right.
great, right? And when's the best time to buy real estate 10 years ago? So that was my big mistake, was that I didn't go all in at that time and buy properties.
Mm.
I was just managing other people's properties.
But you got the operational acumens and kind of figured that stuff
Mhm.
out. And naturally, I mean, obviously the journey continues. So we have this big exit. We, kind of got our bearings on running real estate management. What's the next piece?
Yeah, so while I'm doing all of this, I really got interested in real estate development and the idea of development. So, but there's no way to learn development unless you go work for a development company or you maybe go to school, but then that's just, school stuff, um, unless you work for a developer. So in Palm Springs, I ran into a real estate developer at a Christmas party for some financial advising company. And I was like, oh, he was a former attorney. He was like developed, he had just built like 30 homes plus a commercial component. So it was a mixed use project. I'm like, this is the guy. So I sent him an email right after and I was like, hey, this is who I am. We have a similar background. I'd love to work for you. No response. Did it again every month for I think it was about a year. I would follow up with this guy. Finally, he's like, "All right, I'll meet with you." Um, this kid is persistent, at least, right? And
Yeah.
so, he eventually allowed or let me work with him. He wanted to pay me. I'm like, I don't want to get paid. And after practicing law, I would go over to his house and we would work on some of his developments and some of the things that he was working through that he had lost in '08 and was figuring out, and so like some legacy projects as well. But I got to
Mhm.
learn a lot about how to set up all the paperwork and how to do the plans and how to submit to the city. So I was able to get firsthand experience. But it was, again, especially being young and insecure when you're a lawyer, it's hard to be like, oh, I'm going to work for this guy for free, or I'm going to go, take these people around to look at a $300,000 house. It's like, but you have to get past that to be able to build the basic building blocks to get to where you
Right.
want to in your career. It's eating that humble pie at the beginning, right?
Absolutely. And you bring up a great point, like leveling up, especially kind of in your 20s. Some people just kind of learn trial by fire and take the punches themselves, or some kind of lean on a great mentor, right? And it sounds like you had somebody that was willing to show you the ropes to shorten your learning curve, hopefully, that had already taken the punches and kind of figured this stuff out. So you got exposed to development now. Walk me through, did you dive into your own projects, or were you just tagged, I understand you were kind of complimenting his efforts for a while and learning along the
Mhm.
way, but what was the next piece of your journey after that?
Yeah, so my first project that I was able to do not on my own, I had partners, but it was a zone change project. And so there was this building, cannabis was super hot at the time. So this was, I always used to say 5 or 6 years ago. It's probably like 8, 9 years ago now, because time goes wicked fast
Time
with the
keeps
little
ticking. Yeah.
one. And so we put an option on this warehouse building. The guy did not want to be involved in cannabis, so we put the option on it, and then we gave them a great price, and we were able to tie it up for, I think, a little over a year. And we went through the process to get the zoning changed
Hmm.
for the whole block that it sat on, so that it would now be in the cannabis zone.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and so we did that. That's a whole war story that I could talk about and learned a ton from, but we were able to make some money off of it, which was great. And that facility is now still operating as a cannabis facility, which is kind of cool. And I get to drive by it all the time. But I was able to use the funds from that to purchase my first property by myself, or me and my wife, which was a 100% vacant retail center, which is what I typically invest in now, mostly because that was the deal that I saw, and that's where I learned from. And
So
so,
I was going to bring it all full circle and to really
yeah.
talk about your current portfolio, but so hold on, I got to unpack this for a second. All right. So far we're early to the Airbnb business. We're early to the cannabis business. Like I'm like, wait a minute, like you're kind of getting in the right, you know, markets, rooms, whatever it is that's kind of getting you in front of these things. But a rezoning, especially in California, somebody from Texas, like I know the night and day difference of how hard it is over there, right? That must have been, I mean, a year, it sounds like. Was that like the whole timeline it took to do this stuff? How did you even figure these things out? Like that's a lot.
Yeah, so a zone change in California is tough. I've actually done about 4 zone changes now. It's kind of
Wow.
like a fun little niche for me, because there's so many properties that you see, and you're just like, why isn't anything done? Why hasn't anyone done anything with that? And it's usually
Mm,
because it's zoned improperly, or there's a parking requirement that's all messed up because of the zoning or because of the use. And the city is the stopgap, right? And so it's our job as developers to be like, hey, city, you zoned this incorrectly. Uh, you know, uh, well, that was really funny because I said, hey, city, as my Siri came up. This is not the best and highest use. So it's incumbent on us to say, this is what it should be doing. And it's essentially just you have to convince the municipality, and it's some paperwork and some environmental stuff, but it's mostly politics.
right.
And in the community that I'm in, it's small, and our politicians are approachable and reachable, and I know most of them. And so, you know,
And your lawyer
when they see
background doesn't hurt, right? Like
yeah,
you know how to navigate that world a lot better.
and a lot of it is reputation. So they know that I'm not coming in to put an industrial building next to a school or a residence, right? It's like you have to make sure that it makes sense for the community as well, not just about making money. And so that, I think, is an important thing, because they know when I bring my zone change projects, I've thought about that. And I thought about the long-term ramifications of the community in terms of the projects that I'm bringing forward.
So let's kind of, I want to stay on this for a second. So you identified this warehouse that was, vacant, not utilized to its full potential. You saw, a up and coming industry and said, hey, this would be a good fit for this. And you had to go through the motions to ultimately create the value. Was it ultimately a landlord play? Was it like, did you just sell it to an owner occupied user? Like what was the kind of mechanics of the real estate investment of that
Mhm.
effort?
Yeah, and that, going on to that, that's where I learned an incredibly valuable lesson in real estate. Everyone talks about location, location, location. It's timing, timing, timing.
Mm,
And so it was not only the timing of the green rush, as we called it, the cannabis, but also I ran out of time in terms of my purchase option. And so we had done all of these entitlements, we had changed the zone, we had created all this value, but I either needed to come up with the money to be able to buy out the seller, or he was going to be able to, you know,
mm. Just take
take
advantage
over
of all
everything
your
that
work.
I've
Yeah.
done and take advantage of all my work. So, we essentially did a fire sale at the time, and we found someone who was willing to close quickly. And so they got a good deal. We made some money, probably not as much as we could have if we were able to buy the owner out and then just sell it, in a reasonable time frame. but we were young and we didn't have enough money to do that, and we didn't want to take on the risk. So it was a
So
win-win
was
for
that
everyone.
like a ultimately like an assignment type of deal where you had locked it
Double
up?
escrow. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Just double close, got it, and just got it over.
Yeah.
I understand. Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. I mean,
So we
dude,
just made the
that's
delta.
still, but
Yeah, it's great.
it jump
I'll take
started
it.
your personal investing, right? Like
Exactly.
it,
Exactly.
right? So, it,
I
it
mean,
needed to
probably
happen one way or
net
another.
net, probably net net, we made like 500 grand on it between four partners. So 125K just went straight into it, and
Straight into
that
the
was what
bank
I
and then
needed.
jump started your personal investing.
Yep, exactly.
So, and then you said immediately you kind of rolled with your wife, the family kind of portfolio started to build. You said you rolled straight
Hmm.
into a shopping center.
Yeah. Hmm. So this
And
was
so let's talk about that deal.
yeah. So that was actually it was my office was in the sister building. So it was like they're about 15,000 square foot retail shopping centers. And there was an Olive Garden in the middle. And so I would pass by this vacant shopping center every single day on my way to the office. And I was just like, what the hell is the deal with this thing? And turns out it was some guy from Beverly Hills that this was his, you know, excuse the term, redheaded stepchild of a property that he didn't care
Sure,
about. He was
sure.
the only one in the desert. And so he was just kind of letting it sit because it had a bunch of deferred maintenance that he didn't want to put the work in to get it rentable. So I called him, called him, um, and worked out a deal with some seller financing that allowed me to essentially get into it for I think like 400. I bought it for 1.5, so I put 400 grand down and knew I needed to do a bunch of work. But I signed 2 leases while in escrow. So
Oh, that's
just in
fantastic.
terms of just in creating, it was a great location, but I had to sell the vision of what it would be when it was done, as opposed to what it looked like then. And then I
Well,
had to have the
and you were
tenants.
just paying attention to it where he was like, it was not even a thing
Yeah,
anymore. So
exactly. I mean, I just did some renderings, which I didn't know how to do at the time. It was I was just figuring it out, but they liked it. I signed. I'm like, okay, I can lease this thing. Again, learned a ton of lessons. Would have done things very differently if I had purchased that today. But you have to learn by doing. You can
yeah,
read books or watch podcasts all day long. You will never learn more than when you do your first deal. And so you really got to be a doer to figure it out. And I've made mistakes, but I've done it. And I have a capital group now where I take other people's money and invest it for them and do these projects. But I wanted to do my own projects first. And so I see a lot of people trying to raise money and they've never done a deal before,
right.
or they're not teaming up with someone who's done a deal before. And so that's always very scary to me when you take other people's money. If it's family or very close friends, it's fine. But just be careful out there.
So, I mean, perfect segue. I was going to lead up to, so we've got the law business. You're still actively practicing law?
I was tapering down. So about 2018, 2019, when I bought that property, that's when I was leaving the law business because I was now
Wonderful,
busy doing other
wonderful.
things.
So that was kind of your parachute opportunity to get out of the daily grind. And
Mhm.
then you were starting to kind of one-on-one invest, just kind of buying a property, doing the kind of going the motions, turning around.
Mhm.
But then kind of if you're going all in, usually the natural iteration is like, okay, we're going to do bigger deals. We're going to get more sophisticated. We're going to raise, syndicate, start a
Mhm.
fund, whatever it may be. So now we're in the private equity business, right? Real estate private equity
Mhm.
business. So walk me through, like, was it an opportunity that you said, hey, this is such a great deal, I'm going to go ahead and raise because I can't pass it up? Or did you purposefully say, no, I want to start raising and finding deals? Like, how was that what was that inflection point?
Yeah. It was a couple of factors. So one was I had bought a second building and was redoing that, and I found a third building that I wanted to do. And I was doing some like small entitlement deals that I didn't really need money for. And I just ran out of personal funds, and I kept finding deals, and I was like, I can't keep self-funding this anymore if I want to scale and grow to the level that I need to. So that's when the idea of raising capital came to my mind. The second thing is that in the Palm Springs market, which is shocking because there's a lot of wealth here, there is no capital company for alternative investments
Mm.
in real estate. There's some fly-by-night guys who, do syndications, a couple of people who've raised a ton of money, lost it, and then got ran out of town. But there wasn't a flag that anyone had posted saying, this is the capital group. We're here. Here's our office. We've been here for a long time. And so I was like, I need to create this for this market. And so that's when we launched the firm Capital Group, which is the firm brokerage, the firm property management. And so that's when I launched the Capital Group, just I think like 2 years ago. So we've done a couple of acquisitions since then, but it was really just a need in the market and a need for me to have some more funds.
And so has the capital raising been just the friends and family rounds, or have you leveled up into like the family office, like more institutional grade capital? What was that first raise like? Like, let's talk about that. That's, not for the faint of heart, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, definitely. So the first raise I did was a project on Oasis Street in downtown India. And you talk about, kind of predicting the future. My big bet right now is on downtown India, which is the largest population in the Coachella Valley here. It's the city where Coachella Fest takes place. And there's this beautiful old downtown that has just been sitting vacant for a very long time. But the cool kids are coming, cool restaurants, record shops, things like that are opening up. And so I found these buildings. We got, the family called me over and was like, what should I do with them? I'm like, well, what do you want for them? He's like, I want this. And I was like, I'll give you that. And a deal was born, and they carried it. But yeah, raising the first money was extremely difficult. All the people you think will give you money won't.
Right.
And where you actually get the money from is sometimes shocking. I'm like, oh, I have all these real estate investors, they'll give me money. And turns out people who invest in real estate like to invest in their own deals, not others. And so where I've had the most success is people that don't know anything about real estate, doctors, lawyers, they have, or tech people, they've got money and they don't know what to do with it, and they want to diversify out of it. And that was kind of an interesting aha for me, because I thought, I know all these people that love to invest in real estate, they'll invest in me. So it's kind of coming that way. And again, at the beginning, you have to prove yourself. And I'm generally shocked that the type of people who invested with me with like no questions asked are just not the people that I expected.
And so it's, I think your secret sauce is your ability to kind of see that next kind of wave, that next opportunity. You've obviously got your nose to the ground, not afraid to make a cold call, which I think, if you're going to be a successful real estate person, like you got to get over that and just make the calls, because that's where deals are done. Right. So, but I mean, that's the big value, nothing against the doctors and the lawyers, but they're so busy with that stuff. They need somebody like you to like put those pieces together. They want to be exposed to, it sounds like you've got some very exciting real estate projects. Like not everything's always so sexy and exciting, but like to get exposed to that, they need somebody like your team, your firm to put those pieces together for them. Right. And then hopefully make a nice, exciting return along the way on top of it. Right. Let's talk about your team real quick for a second. So you mentioned the firm brokerage, the firm capital. Walk me through kind of what the org chart is. How big are you guys? I mean, you're taking down some very large projects at this stage. What does that look like?
Yeah, so call it my number two is my best friend growing up, Joel Hanshu. He was a high level chef, ran a executive chef of a 9+ million restaurant in Seattle, was the personal chef for Paul Allen, flew all over the world, the chef of billionaires, I call him. And he gave me a call in 2020 as the world was, and he's like, dude, restaurants are, I don't know if we can curse, but restaurants are effed, like what's going on? And I'm like, well, this, because I didn't know, it was, March 2020, I was like, all right, everything's done. Like who's going to buy
Right,
real estate right
right.
now?
The sky's
Turns out
falling.
June
We all thought it was.
2020, yeah, June 2020, like Palm Springs is like the top market, for people who want to get away and be a digital nomad. So I'm like, it was like shooting fish in a barrel for like 2 years. And so,
Mm.
he ran a $9 million restaurant. So I'm like, dude, you can help me with this company. And so we sat in an office, and he didn't know shit about shit, as they say on the Ozarks, about real estate, but he sat across and we learned. And so he's my director of operations, and he's become an excellent agent himself over the last few years. And then we've got Nick, who is just a hungry young dude who will cold call. Everyone loves Nick. And so he's kind of like our jack of all trades. And we run a co-working space out of my current building. And
Mm.
we have all these things. And again, it's my ADD. I can't say no to most things. So I at least want to try. So they humor me in kind of delving into some of these tasks that I require of them.
So this is the brokerage team. So lean, mean, it sounds like y'all don't have a huge body count, but a lot of impact, it sounds like, and output, which
Yeah.
is arguably the better way to do these things these days, right? On the capital side, is there a mature team? Is it just you guys kind of running that show?
So it's pretty much the same team. On the brokerage side, we have, I think, 20 agents that are under my brokerage
Okay.
license
Oh,
now.
that's significant. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, so it's a good size brokerage, but these are the people who are on like payroll that are that do things for me, not just for themselves, in terms of
Right.
growing the business and doing what needs to be done. The fourth member, who's on the capital side, but also runs now the vacation rental management, because I do not want to do that, is my brother, Joshua Gilbert. And so he's got a company called Apex Rentals. He's got probably close to 20, 30 properties that he does. And then he's also a member of the capital group team.
Wow. Okay. And so, there's a journey in just running a business like that. We're both members of the entrepreneurial organization, which is, a lot of people that are learning all these things to run these businesses. Where does your time and energy go? You've got quite a few, I think we're cut from the same cloth. I've got the entrepreneurial ADD just like you do. And so, but like, where do you feel like, how do you prioritize your focus? There's all these moving parts. We're all deal junkies, so like we're
Yes.
always looking for new opportunities. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so that's hard. And but I've always been the type to do 2 to 3 things at one time. So when I'm practicing law, I'm learning development, and I'm starting a vacation rental company. And then I have to leave law because of this. And then I had to leave the vacation rental management company because I need to spend more time over here. And then it went to brokerage. And then that was so now my time is mostly spent building up the capital group, finding deals, and then continuing to broker big deals. So I had to, a couple of years back, I was like, I can't do anything for less than $1 billion, less than a special thing. And now I'm doing a lot of things, 5 million plus in terms of the brokerage side. So just being more selective, and then being able to feed the team with the things that I've now kind of grown out of, and just really focusing on that. So
And so how big, like, if you don't mind me asking, how many
yeah.
assets under management are you guys today? And let's talk about the vision. Where are we going? Are we going to be one of these big PE shops, right? Like, walk me through that.
Yeah, so I actually just acquired a new project 2 days ago. And that was that
Congrats.
first building. Thank you. That first building that I bought and shared the story with, the vacant retail center. I sold that December of last year, so about 3 months ago. And so I bought it for 1.5, sold it for 3.5, and now we just acquired this 43,000 feet of industrial space that had 26,000 feet of vacancy. And in escrow, I signed a gym to take 20,000 of it. And
Of course you did. Of course.
and so,
Expect nothing less.
And one of the big inspirations for me was Confessions of a Real Estate Entrepreneur by James Randall. That was my a ding ding book that, really inspired me. And he's like, if you've got the tenant, find a vacant building, fill it, you've made millions. And so that's what I try to do. And essentially 2 days ago on close of escrow, because I had the lease signed to get it on the closing, we created about $2 million in value on the spot. And so that's the deals that I like to do, and just have it just completely ready to go. But I concentrate on my sweet spot, which is, $3 to $7 million projects, mostly 3 to 5, that are mostly vacant, and we can create at least a couple million in value. And it's big enough that the regular, mom and pop people is probably too big for them, and it's too small for the PE and, some of these family offices.
Right.
And so that's
Right.
our little sweet spot in this market. And we work with mostly mom and pops, and not national retailers to fill them.
And so is it safe to say like you're trying to acquire kind of ideally vacant or underutilized, at probably just kind of structural value, right? Or better if possible. And then you're working it as efficiently and sometimes so fast that like by the time you close, it's now performing at a income value, right? And that's where the magic happens, right? You generate income where it was just sitting vacant, and now boom, you're off to the races and growing it. Real quick detail, did you 1031 out of that other property into this one?
Yes. But interesting enough, we're always learning, right? And so the things that I buy are so cash intensive. And I think we've talked about this. It's like I've never made so much money and felt so poor, because all the money just like goes back into these projects, right? And so and through probably EO and some other things, I learned about tenancy and commons and tick structures, which I didn't know about, even being a lawyer, that you can take your 1031 funds and do a tick with another group. And so I was able to bring some additional outside capital in, reduce my interest in this property, but make it less intense on me to come and write all the checks. So that kind of my new structure, I kept over 50% so I have managing control. But bringing OPM, bringing in some outside capital is the new thing that I want to do, because I'm tired of just writing checks all the time and being very wealthy on paper.
Yeah.
And not in the bank account.
The classic real estate investor, we're always paper or equity rich. I say we, but like in general, equity rich and cash poor, right? Like that's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately.
These guys who are in their 70s and 80s, and they're just like grinding, and I'm like, man, dude, like when are you going to enjoy it?
Right, absolutely. So we 1031 in this building. We got a great lease already to one portion of it. It's a pseudo mixed use, if I'm not mistaken. You've got some industrial, you've got a storage facility kind of adjacent to it, if I'm not mistaken. So like, and then it's just kind of the rinse and repeat playbook that you're running. Like just optimize this thing, get all the cash flows firing. Is this one you're gonna, 1031 again? Are you going to cash out refi? Like, what's the exit strategy on this thing?
Yeah, and again, with the last property, if interest rates were a little bit better right now, I probably would have refied and kept it, but they're not. And my loan is actually assumable, so it provided a little bit of value to the buyer there, because he assumed my loan. So I think on this one, when it's churning, it'll be great, and if it cash flows and I can refinance it at a good number that makes sense, I'll keep it. If at some point it doesn't make sense, or I want to take this from, my pro forma shows that once it's all churning at a 7 cap, these buildings should be worth about 7 million. So I'm conservatively saying it's worth 5 right now. So if that's the case and I can sell it for 7, well, maybe I'll take that 7, and if my loan is low enough at that time, I'll put it into a bigger property and just keep recycling
keep growing it that way
to get bigger. Yeah.
Talk to me about deal hunting, right? Like, are you just kind of driving for dollars in your market? You mentioned kind of this pocket that you like Indio that you kind of figured
Mhm.
out that is a sweet spot. Are you doing any kind of online analysis? How are you kind of like, without giving away anything you don't want to give away, of course, but like,
Yeah,
what is the secret sauce around that in terms of finding a good deal?
yeah. Well, with one of my mentors who probably has 300 to 400 APNs right now, that he owns. I was like, if you can go back in time, and you're 25, I think that's when I asked him, what would you do? And he's like, because he was a lawyer too, and then got into, he didn't like getting into some other stuff, and then eventually got into doing real estate full time. He's like, I would be a broker, and you will see a lot of deals, you'll get all the information, you can cherry pick the best deals either for yourself or for people that you want, and the rest you take to your investors or you take time. So I just see a lot of deals. I talk with a lot of people. I look at the market every single day. I know all the brokers because we
Hmm.
do deals together. And so, um, sometimes they call me and be like, Adam, this is in your wheelhouse. Like, are you interested? And I'm like, hey, if it's off market, they represent me. I get how brokerage works, right? So it's just about being in the market, seeing a lot of deals, and knowing the players.
That's a very interesting point. You've got, it sounds like 20 hunters out there for you at any given time that are out there kind of, shaking the trees to see what opportunities hit. And they probably know your buy box or your strategies being working so close to you. But it's also interesting given, we're coming off this mega like settlement thing, brokerage. I know you're more kind of leaning towards commercial, but like brokerage is the whole real estate thing. The economics are being threatened, but you've got another way to monetize built in now, right? In terms of like, yeah, like we're making real estate sales and that's happening, but like we're also kind of sourcing our own portfolio along that same effort without really doing something, completely different. That's unique, and I feel like, you know, people are going to start leaning into things like that. Maybe there's other revenue streams that, brokerages start to figure out or realtors start to figure out, you know, maybe not exactly that way, but like I think you're going to start to see people starting to get creative here. But it's interesting that you've got like that front lines funnel. You got an army out there, 20 guys, right? Kind of looking, pounding the pavement for you. And then you've got, these opportunities that hit your desk probably fairly regularly, I would imagine.
Yeah, and the the interesting thing is that this last deal that I bought, it was on the market. It was listed.
Right.
And so even with all of that, but the funny thing is that so the property that I just purchased was in foreclosure. And when all of these like asset management companies were when it first got the notice of default, they like reached out to me and asked me to do a broker opinion of value. And so I did and they're like, hey, if we get it, you'll list it. I'm like, all right. So I do this whole broker opinion of value. Um, and so I come up with my conclusion that fully leased would be worth 6 million. And then I see it comes to the market, months later, that they're trying to work it out with the bank. And so I'd already done my analysis on this, and in my opinion, I think that there was some things on the listing that were not what I would have done. And so I think it made it so that it was a good opportunity for me. And then because I do a lot of deals, I knew it was an agent who mostly does residential, but I knew the agent and we had a relationship. And so she helped me get into the position to be able to acquire it, because she knows I close deals.
Right.
And I'm not this like random person from out of the market, and that I have a reputation. So all of those things factored into that particular one. And then another thing, I've gotten feedback like, well, isn't that, most brokers, they don't buy their own deals because aren't they at odds with the client, in terms of, giving them the best deals? And I'm like, you want your commercial broker to be an investor because they're going to know firsthand if your broker doesn't own any property, like how do they know what is a good deal
Yeah.
and what's not? Because
Yeah.
they haven't done it. They don't know what it's like to wake up in the middle of the night like freaked out, And so
Right.
I use that experience to help my buyers, and sellers at the same time, make good decisions on it. So there's so many deals. I only have access to so much capital that there's things that I would totally buy if I could, and then I'm able to take it to my clients and say, I would buy this. I can't right now. I just bought something 2 days ago. You should buy this. And so I think
Love
it
that.
does carry a lot of weight, and with so many deals in this world, you're never in conflict. So
I love that. I love that. So let's talk about, let's kind of round this out, but let's talk about a war story.
okay.
Give me a tough lesson. Give me the ugly, what happened, obviously came out on, you're still around, you're still ticking, you're still fighting, but like
So far,
we've all
yeah.
taken the punches, we've all got our scars. Give me one that
Mhm.
really kind of stands out for you.
So I'll give you one that's relevant to something we discussed earlier. So that warehouse deal, when I sold it, essentially uh, we needed more time, and so we needed to get confirmation of the conditional use permit for the cannabis licenses. And so the way that we structured the deal is that the guy would come in with $2 million. As I mentioned, we made 500 grand on it. So the 500,000 was held as a note on the property until we could deliver the CUP. So we go through this whole thing, we get the CUP, and we're like, hey, we did it, like give us our 500K. And he doesn't. And so and so I'm like, all right, well, you're in default of our note, and so I'm going to foreclose. And so I go through the whole process, and that was my first foreclosure of doing it. On So the rules in California, this is it's like a 90-day process, and then you can put the property up for auction. On day 89, he paid us.
Wow.
It was just a stalling tactic to like keep capital, and most people will get jerked around a bit and they don't want to hire a lawyer. Luckily, I am a lawyer, so I knew the
Right. Yeah.
process. It's like I was like, please don't mess with me. I don't want to have to use what I know. Let's just make this all easier. But we eventually got paid. But yeah, that was just like one of those things where it's like, really, dude, come on. Um, so that
Wow.
was a good one. And
Yeah, and I'm sure on pins and needles the whole way, right? Just seeing, because
mhm.
then you got to go through this. It's a whole nother process at
That
that
was my
point, right?
first deal. Like I was like, I need to get paid on this. I need to take this and put it into a building. Like it was a lot
Oh
of
my
money
God.
for me at the time. And then one other thing is a loss. We bought 3 lots in La Quinta and a country club that we were going to develop. We decided not to just because of uncertainty. These were P3 residential homes, and then we get into contract to sell them. And we were just in a very, very weak position because we didn't have money, we didn't want to carry these, we didn't want to build it, and these people just dragged us out for so long. And so we ended up losing money, probably like 100
Hmm.
grand on that deal. It was also but in a full circle, I actually think that I'm going to be able to sell one of those properties, find a buyer for it, that I lost money on. So it's going to come back to me at
It's gonna
some
come
point.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, because they've developed the houses on them to this point. So that's a good thing. And then recently I lost because I was developing a Dairy Queen drive-through in Desert Hot Springs.
They're
When we
building
started the
those still?
deal.
I didn't know they're
Yeah,
still
so
building Dairy Queens. Okay.
Dairy Queen Grill and Chill. Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
they have food now. So just the ice cream only stores don't work, but these work. And so we got it all approved. But when we started, interest rates were like 3%. By the time we got it approved for an SBA for ground construction, it was like 11, 12%, and
Oh,
no
oof.
longer penciled. So I lost all my deposits. I lost all the engineering, franchise fee, yada yada yada. So yeah, they're not all
Ugh.
wins, but
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
you just got to
But
go and
you
you
could
got to
argue
try.
that it's sometimes just taking the hit on the soft costs is still a better outcome than trying to muscle through something that may not even, you know, work anymore, right?
Yes.
And
Mhm.
I
Sunk
think
cost
we've all
fallacy
learned.
is for real.
Yeah, I think the lesson we've all learned, is in this past 18 months to 24 months of just kind of this roller coaster is like, you know, the spreadsheet is not, you know, the only place you need to be kind of paying attention to. There's so much
Mhm.
volatility and, you know, unpredictability. Like you just have to expect the unexpected these days, right? So like these
Yeah.
rate hikes, nobody saw it coming as erratically and drastically as it was. And
Mhm.
so many people got stuck in the middle of deals. You know, cash is king, and that's why that statement exists, right? When you're
Mhm.
levering, like it doesn't even matter what LTV anymore. There's fundamental risk underneath that deal when there's leverage, right? And so, yeah, everybody just got to think smarter and recalibrate how they put deals together. I think we're all walking out of this. Those are the, thankfully, most of us that kind of, you know, have figured it out. We're going to end up being stronger analyzers of deals, you know, structures of deals. It sounds like you got a lot of creative kind of structuring that you've done along the way. You know, that could be a whole episode in itself, I'm sure.
Oh, definitely.
um, but no, this is fantastic. So I want to end on kind of where are we going? What's the long-term vision here? You know, you grow in the capital side, you've got a new deal that you're working through, you know, and it looks like you're going to execute very effectively there anyways. But where are we going?
Yeah, so I think the first couple of deals under the capital group have been individual deal syndications. And I want to stabilize a new asset that we just acquired. But I think the next iteration is to just do a general fund, 3 to 5 million of liquid capital, dry powder that we can go out and try to acquire, you know, $10 to $20 million of assets, with creative deals or seller financing or whatever it may be, and not be as deal specific, and have a little bit more freedom. So I think that's the next step. We'll see what that looks like, and then if that's successful, fund two, fund three, fund four, just take it
Yeah.
and continue to
So
acquire
really
stuff,
leaning
continue to create
into the
value.
capital private equity side of it and really just kind of build that out, you know, and
I
hopefully,
love it. I love creating value. I love being creative. I love doing win-win scenarios with tenants and the landlord, which so many landlords will not do. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. Adam, this has been awesome. I appreciate the time you took. Everybody, I'll leave all the contact information to get in touch with Adam in the show notes, so don't worry about that. If you're ever in Palm Springs, Cali, look up Adam. He's got some great real estate and great actions. If you're an investor, Firm Capital, reach out to them. They're doing really cool shit, as you can see. And so, man, I appreciate your time today, dude. It's been awesome rapping with you.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. And if you do follow me on Instagram, I always post the fire memes, the kids say. So
Wait, time out. You're a special like on Twitter, man. Real estate Twitter. You got to find Adam on Twitter, man. I didn't know how big you were until I just happened to fall onto your thing, and I was like, oh my god, this guy's huge. That's awesome. So, real estate Twit peeps. Make sure you hit up Adam if you haven't already. You probably already following him, but appreciate you, brother. Thank you for everything.
All
This has
right,
been
thanks,
awesome
guys.
for sure. Cheers.